Hello everyone and Merry Christmas. Thanks for tuning in to GazService.com on your Christmas day. We're going to do something a bit different today as we normally do now, a bit of a tradition at GazService on Christmas Day and on various bank holidays throughout the year, so Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, some of the bank holiday Mondays through the year as well. We like to do a historic look back. Normally at GazService we're looking ahead to see what's going to be happening, what may happen with weather, but very occasionally I do like to look back and have a look at a past weather event. And for this historic video that we're doing for Christmas Day today, we are going to be looking at winter of 1985-1986, the last of the cold winters of the 1980s. So we've already done, and we're out of sync actually with how we've done these, but we've already done two of the three really cold winters through the middle of the 1980s, which is 84-85 and 86-87. Those are already in the can. You can find them on the historic updates page. But as I say, this one is the final one of the three, 85, 86, and of course we've already done 81, 82 as well, which it was a cold winter that started off the 1980s. Very interesting decade in the 1980s in terms of cold winds until the end, when it did turn significantly milder. So I'll have a little detail on the winter of 85, 86 in a second. I'll show you a couple of pictures as well at the end of the video. Probably less in way of snow with this one than the last two. 87 and 85 were generally very snowy. This one less so, but it was severely cold. Actually, February 1986, which is the cold month, otherwise it's on and off with the cold, but February 1986 was the coldest of all of those 1980s winter months. So it was a really severely cold month actually, although not tremendous amounts of snow. And I'll show you how all the charts evolved in a second. But just to say about the ads at GazService, first of all, there's links to articles on the page, so have a browse widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks so much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages which open out with the content when you watch them and close back up again, and that is helping to pay for our website. Just to say, big thank you to two websites without which I could not do these historic videos. I have to say that at the start of all of these, because they really are fantastic websites primarily, but also there is no way I could do these historic videos without them. So there's Trevor Harley's personal weather website, where I get loads of information, loads of notes. There they are, there are my notes. I get loads of notes from Trevor Harley's personal weather website. You can find a link to that on the links page. And also there's WeatherCentral.de. Now, of course, I use WeatherCentral for the regular videos that I always do at GazService anyway, but they also have a very extensive historic archive of charts going back to 1871. So what we do with these historic videos is we combine the historic charts with Trevor Harley's information. I think it does work quite well to give a fairly entertaining half an hour or so. So big thank you to Weather Central, big thank you to Trevor Harley. Again, there's no way I could do these updates without your information and your charts and your website. So huge thank you to them. And just a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in on this Christmas Day. I know you're very busy with other things, so thanks so much for visiting us at GazService and sharing a little bit of your Christmas Day with us anyway. And you can't watch it all in one sitting, because I realise that half an hour is a long time out of a Christmas Day, so it's going to be kept around the website indefinitely, as are all the historic videos that we've done, going right the way back to 2012 when I first started the website. Every single one of the historic videos I've ever done is here on the website. So if you want to watch this video again, you can't watch it all in one go, don't worry, it will be here on the website, and definitely you can just find it by clicking the button that says historical at the top of the page. You'll go to a list of all our videos, and this will be the top on the top of the pile, of course, because it's the latest one that we've done. Right, I think I've said enough. Let's get on with the update. Got a lot of ground to cover, because we're going to start off in October and go through to the spring. I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat, so I've got my water. I may have to stop and have a little drink, a little cough. Hope you'll bear with me. So we're going to start off with October 1985 first of all, because it's a very interesting autumn actually that precedes this winter. So we start off with October 1985, which was a very dry and quite a mild month as well. And the mildest day is actually this one, the 1st of October 1985, where we go up to 27 degrees plus across many parts of the country, over 80 Fahrenheit. Up to 2011, I believe this was the warmest October on record, but it was beaten eventually by 2011. So we move through the 2nd and on in towards the first week of October 85, and we do go to westerly flow then. So we cut off that very mild southerly and we go to, excuse me, a slightly cooler and fresher and more unsettled westerly. But that doesn't last too long. Notice all these extensive heights here across many parts of Europe. What happens is that this high pressure builds up from the south. So by the 12th, the high pressure is sitting there right over top of the country, giving us a warm and dry phase. And look at that, by the 15th, that high pressure really is in across the country. Very dry period setting up through the middle part of October. Now, the central temperature for October 85 was only 11.0. And I think that's primarily down to some pretty chilly nights under all of these areas of high pressure, dragging the overall temperature down. But by day, I remember it quite well actually, by day it did feel pretty warm. Now this is my birthday on the 17th of October 1985. I was 8 this year, and I can remember myself and my friends playing out in the garden, on the lawn, well into the evening, lingering twilight, out playing for my 8th birthday, because it was a pretty warm day, and also it was very, very dry, of course, under this area of high pressure. We go beyond my birthday and towards the 21st of October, and there we are again, high pressure still dominant, so a very prolonged spell of dry weather setting up here, or we're in a very prolonged spell of dry anticyclonic weather, most certainly. And that carries on to the 24th as well. No deviation, but high pressure remains very much in control of the weather pattern sent to the east. But go towards the end of October and we start to get a little bit of a change then. The high pressure begins to retrogress. Retrogression is when we take high pressure from east to west as opposed to zonal, where we go from west to east. It's quite unusual to see retrogression at any time of the year, and when it happens it can be an indication that the atmosphere is just behaving a little bit differently to the norm. So even here, right at the end of October 1985, we're possibly getting signs of what's going to happen as we get through in towards the winter. So we go through to the 30th and on into Halloween, 31st of October 85, and we take that high pressure up to Greenland. We start to push colder air down from the north, and that sets us up for a cold and wintry November. So whereas October was dry and mild, November is cold and wintry, and it's one of the coldest Novembers for quite a long time, with a central temperature of 4.1. So we've got high pressure here to the south of Greenland on the 1st of November, and we bring down this cold northerly wind, which brings snow showers into the north. Now, for a little while, it actually turns a bit milder through the first week. So this is bonfire night of 1985, and we're bringing an area of low pressure through the country, taking rain and starting to introduce milder air to the southwest. It was quite cold to start the month, however. This day, the 8th of November 85, brings us the mildest temperature of the month, where we go up to 18 Celsius in Guernsey with these southwesterly winds, but it doesn't last long. By the time we get through to the 10th, that low pressure is shifting over to Scandinavia, opening the door to these cold northerly winds, and we start to bring snow showers into the north of the country. So the trough of low pressure across central Scandinavia. By the 12th, we've got ridge of high pressure building in from the west. Within that cold air, we start to get some hard overnight frost developing. And then through the middle part of the month, a lot of high pressure influences, but the main thing is to notice it's going up towards Scandinavia. Always very interesting place for high pressure to set up. And as we get through to the 16th of November, we're beginning to get some warm air advection with these southerly winds starting to pump warm air up towards Greenland and into into the Arctic. That just inflates this area of high pressure, and by the time you go through to the 18th of November, the easterlies are beginning to take over as this high pressure at 1,050 millibars sits there over Scandinavia, starts to drag the winds in. Excuse me, drag the winds in from the east. And we go through to the 19th in a real easterly, a bitterly cold easterly wind mist with snow showers into the south and the east of the country. And temperatures by day are actually below freezing all day across many parts of England and Wales. That's very impressive for November. That's quite an impressive cold pull that we see there with the minus 15 isotherm in across Germany, minus 10 across East Anglia and southeastern England. And that's how the snow showers are being driven inland with that cold air and those easterly winds. Notice less cold at this stage for Scotland. They get it later on. So the 20th, we're in a real easterly wind here, bringing quite deep snow cover into the east. We've got snow cover of 2 to 5 centimetres lying across many eastern counties by this day, the 20th of November. And as I say, the temperatures are cold as well, really struggling to get above freezing. Jersey had 12 centimetres of snow on the 20th this day of November. So really impressive cold spell. Bearing in mind this is November, it's still autumn. Really impressive cold spell through this part of the month, particularly focused on England and Wales. Now we get retrogression again as we go through to the 23rd. That high pressure begins to pull out from Scandinavia, starts to head up towards Greenland and Iceland, and this starts to bring Scotland into the mix for the snow. So we lose the easterlies from the south, we start to turn winds into the north and the northeast with 1,050 millibar area of high pressure across Greenland and Iceland. Snow showers are beginning to dig into the north and the east of the country. 26th of November finds snow showers pushing into the north and the northeast, and then we get this area of low pressure developing on the 27th within that cold air. This brings some very heavy snow into northern and eastern parts of Scotland. So temperatures on this day, the 27th of November, were staying below freezing across many parts of the country. Lincolnshire, for example, was below freezing all day with snow on the ground. The night of the 28th into 29th sees temperatures going down to minus 14 Celsius across Scotland, with a maximum of minus 8 in some places. So really quite a severe cold spell here at the end of November, with low pressure providing the moisture and precipitation for snow, and the northerly northeasterly winds digging that cold air in down from the pole, giving those very impressively cold temperatures. Now, we start to run up towards the end of the month and things begin to change again. We did go down to minus 20.9 in the early hours of the 30th of November in 1985 in Kinbrace in the Highlands. But then we do start to see things changing. And in the south, we actually go up to 14 Celsius on the 30th of November as these southwesterly winds start to push in. So we lose the cold influences and begin to bring the air up from the Azores once again. So, as I say, northern Scotland has gone down at this point, excuse me, to minus 20, whereas southwestern parts of England around Cornwall, we've got temperatures of plus 14 Celsius. So, huge temperature contrast. I think there's a band of snow moving north and east was followed very readily by outbreaks of heavy rain. So we go through to the end of November 1985, and this was the coldest November, I believe, since 1919, and we go through into December on a much milder note. So we've lost all that cold air by the 1st of December. We're bringing the air up from the Azores. It's significantly milder, pushing most southerly southwesterly winds in with outbreaks of rain. And December 1985 was generally a mild month, and it was also wet, windy, mild, with flooding in places as well. So here we are on the 4th, and again, I've got a bit of high pressure across Greenland, but we're on the wrong side of the blocking now. We've got a ridge here across many parts of Europe, so we're pumping the air up from the southwest. It is significantly milder, but also wetter. Tries to go a bit colder on the 8th. That doesn't come to much. And by the 12th, we're bringing those southwesterly winds back in yet again, bringing another pulse of mild air in from the southwest. We stay mild at the middle part of December. 85, very wet conditions, wasn't flooding in places, but the air all the time is pumping up, very similar to what we've had when I'm doing the video this month in 2015. We had a very mild December, bringing the air up from the Azores. This is quite similar in some ways, with this air pumping up from the south and the southwest. Running up to Christmas, it does turn a little bit cooler as we start to lose those southwesterly winds a little bit, turn the wind more towards the west, but it's still Atlantic driven, so it still generally is mild, wet and windy, and that takes us up to Christmas Eve. By which time things are starting to change again. Notice the black line, which is projection, is beginning to shift to the south, starting to pull these areas of low pressure southwards. And there was a very famous failed white Christmas that occurred here on December, Christmas 1985. So we had this area of low pressure on Christmas Day. It's in midnight Christmas Day to the southwest of Ireland. Ian McCaskill did a famous forecast, or bit of an infamous forecast, a couple of days before this, where he predicted a white Christmas for many children across the country. It didn't quite work out, and I'll go on to the next chart, which is the midnight on Boxing Day, and it looks quite good. We've got a low pressure running through the channel. The idea was that these cold northerly winds would undercut this low pressure and turn the rain to snow. Unfortunately, the cold air didn't undercut quite enough. So all that happened is that the south had a very wet Christmas Day, whereas the north was cold, and we had snow showers into the north and the east of Scotland. I think Ian had to go on the telly and apologise to the children of the country for the failure of the White Christmas in 1985. But it just goes to show you that snow, as I always say, is incredibly difficult to forecast in this country. Sometimes we get snow events that we predict and it just rains, or we don't get any precipitation at all. Other times we get unforecast snow events, so we predict a great massive rain and it all falls as snow. And these things do happen even now, with all the modern technology, all the supercomputers, still very, very difficult to predict snow in this country. Sorry, I'll just have a drink of water there. So we go on beyond Christmas of 1985, and we start to take those areas of low pressure away to the south and the east, and we open the door then to these northerly and northeasterly winds. We get a cold spell through the end of the year. This northerly wind brings snow showers down to the northeast of the country in particular. I do remember snow on the ground in Northamptonshire, where I am, in this period between Christmas and New Year of 1985. Didn't happen very often when I was a kid, so it does stand out in my memory that there was a little bit of snow on the ground. Not deep snow cover, but there was some snow on the ground. With particularly hard overnight frost, actually, running up to New Year of 1985. But we get to the new year itself and things start to change. Again, look at this. Low pressure is coming back in from the Atlantic, and the winds are going into the west and the southwest. So I think there's another band of snow moving northwards and eastwards on New Year's Eve, followed rapidly by outbreaks of rain as it turns significantly milder once more. So this is how we start January 1986, and we do so on a fairly mild and wet note. Now, January 86 is quite interesting because it's a fairly mild month until the very end, where we finally, after all this toing and froing and backwards and forwards with mild and cold, we finally lock into that severe cold pattern for February 1986. But for January, well, it's fairly interesting to start off with. Then there's a prolonged mild spell. I mean, it gets very interesting at the end. Now, what happens through the first week of January 1986? It's a little bit of a forgotten spell. There's quite a lot of snow, actually, particularly to the north and east of the country, via cold zonality. And that is something quite unusual in this country. Normally, cold zonality will only give snow to Scotland and high ground of northern England and Wales. But this was a little bit more potent. So what happens is that through the 2nd of January, this area of low pressure takes a southerly track. The jet stream is going south of the country. They're on the cold side of the jet. That's the crucial factor. And this deep area of low pressure brings rain in from the Atlantic. Because the low pressure is on a southerly track, cold air undercuts from the north and the northeast. We do get quite a bit of snow here from the 2nd into the 3rd, particularly through Wales, the Midlands, Northern England. I remember this quite well, that we did get some fairly interesting snow events through this first week of 1986. It was rain, I think, further to the south, but this one on the 3rd of January was giving snow to Wales, the Midlands and Northern England. Then it turns drier under this very transient ridge of high pressure with some quite hard overnight frost, and then again another low pressure system comes in, hits that colder air. So we've got rain coming into west, hitting the colder air, giving more snow from the 5th on into the 6th of January 1986. Again, notice the low pressure on the 5th, it's to the west of Scotland. On the 6th, it's to the southeast of England. So it's gone on a northwest-southeast track. It's allowed the north and the east to hang on to the cold air. And again, this gave another snow event to, particularly, I think, Wales, the Midlands, Northern England, on the 5th and into the 6th of January 1986. Same idea again, as we go through to the 7th, we get a bit of a ridge building in. And it's some quite hard overnight frost. This area of low pressure has to come in from the west, meets that cold air and stalls. And this gives more in way of snow 7th to the 8th. This gives more in way of snow to Wales and southwestern England. This isn't a severe cold spell. Don't get me wrong, this isn't severe cold, but it's just one of those things that you can get snow from fairly fairly sort of innocuous weather patterns, really. It's not a big freeze, but it is cold enough just to be producing some fairly heavy snow across the country. We kind of forget that we can get snow in this country through various routes. It doesn't have to be a locked-in, severe cold pattern. Sometimes even an Atlantic-driven pattern, if the jet stream is going far enough south, can deliver us with some snowy conditions. That's certainly what happened through that first week of January. Now, by the time you get through to the 10th, this is the chart for the 10th of January 1986, we are losing that colder snap, and we're bringing in the winds from the west and the southwest once again. And this sets up a prolonged mild spell then through much of January 86. It was a fairly mild month, lovely little cold snap here on the 15th. That doesn't last long, because by the time you go through to the 18th, again, the westerlies are returning. Notice, though, most of Europe looking very cold there with the upper air temperatures. I've got a deep cold ball across Scandinavia, eastern parts of Europe. That's sort of setting things up a little bit for what's going to happen later on in January. 21st, still generally in an Atlantic-driven pattern, albeit it's still cold across Scandinavia. Go through to 23rd, again, still Atlantic-driven, a little bit colder this time, though, from Greenland. 24th is when things start changing. For the last week of January 86, when we begin to set up the severe cold spell of February 1986. So we take the trough of low pressure into Scandinavia, we open the door to northerly winds, and we go on to the 25th, and the northerly winds are extending down through central parts of Europe. You will probably look at that and think we're going to return the winds very quickly into the west. At this point, on the 25th of January 1986, although it's cold across the country, it doesn't look anything at all out of the ordinary. It's this area of high pressure up here, way away from us, almost off the chart, across the northern parts of Russia, and also the Azores high, that is going to do something very unusual and very unique. And I think there's only been 2 or 3 other examples of this happening, possibly in 1947, possibly in another severely cold February 1956, where these 2 areas of high pressure are sort of going to ridge together in that sort of movement, and eventually what they're going to do, and I'll show you the charts, you won't see how it gets there, but eventually they're going to form a huge blocking feature up here, and the jet stream going underneath. It's very, very unusual what happened in 1986. So let's run on and have a look. Here we go to the 26th of January 86 again. building this ridge up from the southwest. Notice the high pressure here across northern Russia beginning to appear a little bit more. There's slight ridging developing across Scandinavia. 27th of January shows high pressure then beginning to form properly up across Scandinavia. Low pressure is trying to come in from the Atlantic. We are sending a bit of warm air advection up into the pole as well in that sort of direction. So very gradually, day by day, instrumentally, we're beginning to build the pattern, build the blocks, if you like, in the right places. And we go through to the 28th of January 86, and we start to bring weather systems down from the northwest. So maybe we've failed with that attempt. Have we failed? No, we haven't, because what's going to happen is that the low pressures will stall across the country. Cold air is starting to undercut from the north and from the southeast, so there was snow here at the end of the month, and across parts of southern southeastern England we did see outbreaks of rain, but across central and northern England we did see snow as the cold air is beginning to undercut here at the end of the month. So what happens, we get through to the 30th of January and that trough is then sinking to the south of the country, and notice this big Siberian high pushing in towards Scandinavia. This high pressure from the Azores moving northeastwards. They are building that link to one another very unusually as this trough of low pressure is formed and cut off excuse me, to the south. And this is how we end January 1986 in a bitterly cold easterly wind with high pressure across Scandinavia. It extends back into western Russia, supported by the Azores high unusually as well, and those bitterly cold winds are screaming in from the east. I remember the rain to snow that occurred here at the end of January 1986. Just going to have another little drink of water for my throat. So we go through to February 1986, and we have an extremely cold month. It was severely cold with a central temperature of -1.1, which is the coldest month of any kind since January 1963, and the coldest February since that brutal cold and snowy February of 1947. So, excuse me again. So this is a little bit of a forgotten cold month, really, across many parts of the country. And the reason, I think, probably because we didn't get a great deal of snow, to be honest, but it was severely cold, and we have forgotten a little bit about it. So on the 1st of February 86, we're bringing in these bitterly cold easterly winds, bringing snow showers into the east of the country. And that carries on into the 7th, more snow showers driving into the east of the country in particular. When I say there was a tremendous amount of snow, in the east actually there was quite a bit. But for many central western parts of the country, no, not a great deal. But what snow fell, and many places did see light snowfalls. So what snow fell and lasted throughout the whole of the month, from the 1st right to the end and into March, that snow did not fall from most parts of the country. That is really a very unusual chart, by the way. Notice again the high pressure across Scandinavia. It extends back into northern Russia. It also extends into this ridge that is originating from the Azores. So just as I said, the two ridges are built together, form this alliance, which they usually don't do, because normally they're fighting against one another. That Azores high is normally trying to keep the winds from the Atlantic, keep us mild. The Siberian high is normally trying to bring the winds in from the east, but normally failing. It's normally the Azores high that's stronger. So what they've done there is very, very unusual and unique. So we run on further, and we see the cold pool is not that extensive on the 2nd of February, actually. Notice this deep cold pool across central parts of Russia, but for most of Europe it doesn't look that impressive with the upper air temperatures. What we need to factor in, though, is that down on the surface it is very much colder, and keep an eye on this cold pool across central Russia. That will eventually push into many parts of Europe. So we go through to the 4th, and again we've got these easterly winds, a little bit lighter, so not such a severe wind chill, but it's certainly very cold with hard overnight frost and daytime temperatures staying around freezing all day. I believe Buxton, for example, did not get a temperature above freezing from the first of the month to the end of the month. The whole of February 1986 in Buxton had temperatures below freezing. Very, very unusual. And most other parts of the country just struggled on most days to reach freezing or just get a little bit above. And of course, some days it did stay below freezing as well. We go through to the 6th, and still the same idea. The high pressure is blocking out to the northeast of the country. Little bit of a trough developing here as well within the upper flow. I think this brought some quite heavy snow into the east around the 5th and around the 6th and the 7th of February 1986. I remember one really quite impressive snowfall. I can't pin it down to a date here in Northamptonshire. I wasn't recording the weather at that time, but I do remember pretty impressive snowfall around this time, 6th, 7th of February. So maybe this was it. It could well have been. Notice that deep cold pool now has pushed into Western Russia and Eastern Europe, and we have got quite an extensive cold pool across the UK. It sort of extends back into that deep cold pool across the east of Europe through the 6th and the 7th, and that's creating and providing the grounds for that instability. That's probably producing some quite heavy snow in the east and the south of the country through the 6th and the 7th. We move on beyond that, and the high pressure sort of sinks down across the country there and overlaying very cold air, of course. So now we're talking about mostly dry conditions with severe frost. This really extremely cold pool of air is across Germany, threatening us, but actually that just sinks down into Italy. If that cold pool had moved in across the country, I think we would remember 1986 rather more, because that would have brought some very, very heavy snow indeed. It would have formed an area of low pressure over North Sea, and we would have had the kind of conditions we had the next year in January 1987. But that didn't happen, and what happened is that the severe cold pool went down to Italy, which just left us very cold and dry, really, with high pressure dominating. Very dull month as well, this, with some places not getting much in the way of sunshine at all, and that's particularly in the east. So it's kind of reminiscent of 1947 in some ways. Very cold, very dull, snow on the ground, but just less in the way of snow. Things didn't quite set up right for those big snow events that we had in 1947. But even so, impressively cold temperatures, with many nights going well below freezing, and daytime temperatures, as I say, struggling to get above freezing. I'm looking for the lowest temperature of the month, but I think the lowest temperature was in a Grantown-on-Spey. Not sure where that is, but it went down to minus 21.2 on the 27th of February 1986. And I say very dull conditions as well. This was a failed snow event here as we go through to the 13th and the 14th. I remember this one was predicted to bring a lot of snow in across England and Wales, but the high pressure just proved so stubborn across Scandinavia that the low pressure was unable to get in and bring the moisture. I think far southwestern tip of the country did get some snow, but generally this stayed away from us, and it's one of those forecasts that went a little bit wrong, famously. We go through to the 15th, February 1986, and again we're still in that bitterly cold southeasterly flow. This probably bringing more snow into the east of the country. Elsewhere it's mostly dry, and look at this, on into the 16th through to 21st, we just stay locked in to this cold pattern. Jet stream going a long way south, going down into Spain, Portugal and the Mediterranean. High pressure around Greenland Iceland, and again bitterly cold air into the north and the east of the country. This is the point when we start to get some snow into the north, and again we have quite a cold pool there coming in from the east, and that does provide the north, which has had a great deal of snow through this winter. The north gets a little bit of snow around this point, 23rd of February 1986. Very extensive cold pool again, with the upper air temperatures below minus 10 for many parts of the country. We keep locked in cold conditions through to the 25th, so you can see why it was such a cold month, because the blocking feature, once it got going, just didn't shift. and those westerlies and the mild air were not able to get in. We go through to the end of the month, staying in a cold scenario, and low pressure begin to develop to the south. And after not having a huge amount of snow through February 86, we go through to the 1st of March, we get a blizzard across England and Wales. So it was a cold and settled month in March 1986. These easterly winds continue to bring in, I should say, bitterly cold air from the east, and the low pressure to the south, driving up weather fronts, which did produce a lot of heavy snow on the 1st of March 1986, and also blizzard conditions with those strong winds as well. See the upper air temperatures, not severely cold, but cold enough certainly if you're outside of this yellow area, which is where the upper air temperature is going above freezing. If you're outside of that area of yellow with a cold pool established, you'll tend to get snow, and that's what happened in early March 1986. We move through into the 2nd, and still with those cold east winds, still with snow across the south of the country. But by the time we go through to the 3rd and the 4th, we begin to re-establish the westerlies, and it starts to turn significantly milder, with westerly winds, bands of rain moving in, and we end that cold spell, severe cold spell, that has gone on for over a month. We've finally turned things milder and broken the Atlantic through. And that takes us through the first week of March 1986 with some cold zonality, a little bit of snow in the north, but generally rain and a fall down in the south. This period through the middle part of March 1986 provides some very mild weather. So after all of that cold weather, the middle part of the month sees temperatures going up towards 18 Celsius. But it's not the end of the cold actually. As we move through towards the end of the month, things do start to turn colder again. Here we are on the 25th with another shot of cold air coming down from the northwest, and this is a cold trough of low pressure providing wintry conditions and hard overnight frost, particularly for time of year in the north of the country. April 1986 is also quite a cold and wet month as well. That's a very impressive chart on the 10th of April 86. Notice the air is the ice bars with the air going back to Scandinavia, bitterly cold air in from the east and the northeast. It was a cold April, it's a cold March, a cold spring, and it just goes on, and I can carry on through to the middle part of the month, see that trough of low pressure sinking southwards, introducing those easterly winds yet again. I think I've gone on long enough. You get the idea. It was a cold spring, but the main focal point of this winter was in February, which was a severely cold month, as I've already established. It was the coldest February since 1947, the coldest month since 1963. A little bit of a forgotten month, as I've said, because there wasn't that huge amount of snow that we get in the more classic snowy months, such as 1947, such as 1963. We didn't get that level of snow, but my word, was the cold impressive. I remember it very, very vividly, even though I was only 8. Well, I hope I brought back some memories for you on this Christmas Day. I'm just going to leave you with a few photos before I go, but I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to our latest historic video and taking time out on your Christmas Day. So let's just have a look at a few photos. Here's a train in the snow from 1986. I think this is in Derbyshire somewhere, on a wintry looking afternoon. It's not deep snow at all really, but certainly snow on the ground, and that's very indicative of grey skies, snow on the ground. That's very indicative of what happened in February 86. This is, I'm not sure where this is, but it looks very cold, doesn't it? With a fields of snow and some very frozen looking trees as well. This is from, I think this is from Brighton, and it's from the start of March in 1986. These are people skating on a pond, both adults and children, and we know we shouldn't skate on frozen water, don't we? I'm not quite sure what those adults think they're doing, but there is absolutely no way of telling how thick and how deep ice is going on a canal, on a pond, or a lake. So please do not do what these people do. They got away with it, I hope, in Brighton in March 1986. But please do not do what those people are doing. There's no way of knowing how thick the ice is. It's very, very easy to fall through. If you do fall through, hypothermia will set in very, very quickly. So, no, never skate on frozen water. And then finally, we have a very cute picture of a baby with its mother in the snow, looking very, very bundled up and very cold, but snug as a bug in a rug in his or her buggy. So wasn't a huge amount of photos to go at for 1986. Actually, I had a good look on Google. I couldn't see a great deal, to be honest. And again, that's just indicative of the fact there wasn't a huge amount of snow. It's the cold temperatures that were most impressive, and the on-off nature that makes it interesting of the cold until it finally locks in February of 86. So that's it. That's the historic video done for this Christmas, and we've finished with all of the cold winters of the 1980s. So we've got the trilogy now, 84, 85, 85, 86, 86, 87. That's the main reason I wanted to do the historic video today, to be honest, to get the trilogy of the cold mid-1980s winters. I think they make up a very fascinating threesome, to be honest. So if you haven't seen the other two from 86, 87, 84, 85, do check those out on the historic videos page. I'm not sure what the next historic video will be. It'll probably be for Easter. Maybe we'll think a little bit about a spring or summer one then, but I'll let you know, of course, nearer the time. Thanks so much for taking time out on this Christmas day to share with myself and with Gaz Weathers. And all that remains is to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And again, thanks for tuning in and enjoy what's left of your Christmas day. Thanks for watching.